Brian, finished Liverpool 2, Crystal Palace 0. I suppose a result we might have predicted before the game. Liverpool get the job done into the Champions League. So I suppose you look back at that defeat against Fulham at Anfield, they were down to 8th place. I think a lot of Liverpool supporters gave up hope of Champions League football for next season. So you'd have to praise Jurgen Klopp for turning things around and getting his side into what is the most important European competition.
Yeah, and to praise the players. It was an exceptional turnaround. We won 8 games and drew 2, and they'd been annoyed about the couple of games they even drew, Newcastle and Leeds, I think it was. But really important victories at the end. Jurgen Klopp had written it off when he was asked after the Fulham game, could they make the Champions League place, and he said it was impossible now. But it wasn't impossible. So it was a great day for them, and I think in the overall circumstances of the season and the difficulties that they've had with the injuries, and the personal difficulties that Alisson and Jurgen Klopp himself have had, I think it was a very good return from the season. And I wouldn't agree with those that said that Liverpool were bad champions this year. I think it was more circumstances that led to how the season has gone to them. I think it was an exceptional number of injuries, really was. And some people have pointed out that they spent a lot of time moaning about them. I don't think so. I think they just tried to get on with it the best they could, but it was just really extraordinary that they lost 4 centre backs and then lost Henderson and then Jota and Keita as well, all at the same time. So I think they've done well to turn it around and to get a Champions League place. It's not winning the trophy, but I think it's satisfactory for Liverpool given the difficulties they had.
And just quickly on them before we move on, when you think that Virgil van Dijk should be fit by August, hopefully they get Joe Gomez back. Thiago really pouring for them towards the end of the season. He's been brilliant. When you factor all that kind of thing in for next season, they'll obviously sign a couple of players. We don't know what the story is with the likes of Wijnaldum. Salah's future has been questioned as well, as has Sadio Mane's. But if he can keep the guts of that squad together, make a couple of good signings, do you think they will be good challengers for Man City next season?
I think so. I think they were the best team in the world last year. They won the World Club Cup. They won the Champions League the previous season. They won the league last season, and nobody questioning that they were the best team in the world at the time. But they've fallen a bit from that. And even when Van Dijk was playing, I mean, he was part of the team that were beaten 7-2 by Aston Villa earlier in the season. So they weren't playing as well in the earlier part of this season, even though results in the first 14 games were overall they were good enough. They dropped off badly after that. Can they compete with Manchester City again next season? I think they can. I think they've got the resources there. I think the owners will want to support the manager in purchasing the players that can make the difference. In general, the recruitment has been very good. There's been 1 or 2 players they haven't got a lot from. Keita, I suppose, notably. But other than that, they've done quite well. Jota has come in, he's looked a player when he's been fit. And whatever happens, when Wijnaldum gone, if Wijnaldum goes, he'd be a loss. But I still think that with a little bit of freshness, they can challenge again next season.
Pep Guardiola, the Manchester City boss, has won his 3rd title in charge of City in the Premier League. Won the EFL Cup as well. He's just a trophy collector, serial trophy collector. And I know a lot of people will make the argument that he has endless resource at Manchester City. He can make whatever signing he wants. He can pay whatever salaries he needs to pay for those Manchester City players. But it's been a great achievement for him because they didn't start off the season very well, Manchester City. They dropped down the table themselves. But I know he spoke himself in interviews where he talked about changing the way the team played. Maybe not playing as intense as they would have had in previous seasons, slowing down the way they play, and it has worked for them. They've won a title.
Yeah, they haven't pressed at the same level as they had in previous season. I think there was a conscious decision made in terms of maybe keeping some of the energy of the players for the latter half of the season. I kind of looked closely at the appearances of the various players in the squad, this morning, as it happened, before I selected my team, individual players, team of the season, and I noticed an awful lot of the players didn't play more than, I'd say, 27, 28 games. In a 38 game season, that's unusual. Most teams that win the league, there would be about 8 or 9 players who play the majority of the games, and then there's about 6 or 7 or 8 players who are rotated or come in and out according as their injuries. But with Manchester City, that hasn't been the case. So I think he's used the squad very well. They've dealt with the problems of the whole COVID situation and the compressed season at the end of last season, running on into this season with a very short break. They played with style, they played with beautiful football, a lot of small little nicky lads in the team with, you know, the likes of Bernardo Silva, Sterling, Foden, Gundogan, like Mahrez, lovely players, Gabriel Jesus, but no out centre forward a lot of the time either. And they've been the best team, and the manager's done a great job. And for me, he was the manager of the year. They could go on to win the Champions League as well. They won the League Cup, beat Spurs, should have beat them by more in the final. So, bar winning the FA Cup, there hasn't been much more they could have done this season. So, an exceptional performance by the manager and a great performance by his team. And
he's up there in the history books as one of the great coaches in football. He's up there with the likes of the Sakis, the Capellos, the Mourinhos, the Fergusons, the Shankleys, the Paisleys. But if he doesn't win the Champions League now with Manchester City, when he got to the final with them, will that take a little bit of the gloss off this season? The fact that he has won the Premier League title before, I know it's still a brilliant achievement, but getting that Champions League really is all important for Manchester City, isn't it?
Well, it is. I mean, they've won the Premier League plenty of times in recent years. He's won it twice in the last 3 years. So, adding that to the trophy cabinet isn't in itself totally satisfying. I think at times they've tried to distract people from from Manchester City's own ambitions around the Champions League in case they failed. But now they've got themselves to the final. I think the pressure is on for them to win it. They've had all the resources, they've had a great manager, and normally when you put those two situations together, you win it. That's what all the great clubs have done. If they want to become one of the clubs in world football that people look up to and say, oh, they are one of the great clubs of world football, well then they've got to do what the likes of even Ajax and Juventus, who've fallen off the pace in recent years, even though they've got to the final. But Bayern Munich, even Chelsea, Liverpool, of course, Manchester United, Barcelona, Real Madrid, what these clubs have done has put them in an elite status in world football that both Manchester City and PSG have failed to do. So this is the one they've got to do, and now they've got a chance. Fortunately, from their point of view, they're playing Chelsea, who've beaten them a couple of times recently, and who know how to beat them. But they have the quality, they have the players, and they have the manager who generally gets it right, but he hasn't in the Champions League. He didn't with Bayern Munich, he did with Barcelona, he hasn't with Manchester City, and I'm sure it will be niggling at him all this week, despite the bright face he puts on it, and the way he speaks and the way he talks. I still think within himself, his ego and his pride will have him bursting to get this over the line, that his team finally achieved this, that Manchester City as a club and him as a manager of that club achieves the Champions League victory. But it won't be handy for them against Chelsea. That's interesting, because that kind of mentality, or if Guardiola lets that feed into his squad, that could be dangerous for the final. Well, I don't think he will. I mean, his demeanour has been very, very open, I think, lately. It's been very good. He's been very calm about the fact that they've won the league and they've played so well and they've won it so convincingly early on. I think it's allowed him to concentrate his his preparations for the Champions League. But I think it's a bit unfortunate that he's ended up playing Chelsea. I think Chelsea are not the team who would have wanted to play in the final, but that's how it's come out, and that's what he's got to deal with. I think he would have preferred to be playing PSG maybe, but you know, they've got to deal with that, and I'm sure he will have his players in the right frame of mind, and he should have every confidence in them because they've risen to every challenge that's been there for them this season, both in the Premier League and the Champions League.
Brian, from an Irish perspective, it hasn't been a good Premier League season. Over the years, we've seen the numbers of Irish players, Irish internationals involved in the English top flight dwindle. You have to go all the way down to 7th place Tottenham Hotspur to see any player of note in Matt Doherty. He's had a patchy season. You look at the likes of Brighton, Aaron Connolly never really kicked on for them. Sheffield United, John Egan and Enda Stevens, they didn't play too badly themselves. We know John had an injury problem himself this season, but Sheffield United go down, as do West Brom, with Darragh O'Shea, who's shown some really good stuff with West Brom, but himself and Callum Robinson go down. It's been disappointing, and I was even looking at the playoff semi-finals. In the 4 teams in the playoff semi-finals, there hasn't been many Irish players involved there either. Conor Horan for Swansea City, but aside from that, there's nothing there really. And just overall, it is a little bit worrying from an Irish perspective. It's
disappointing from an Irish perspective. It's probably the least interest we've had in the Premier League for probably forever. Our interest has been peripheral, I'd say. The involvement of our players has been peripheral, apart from Seamus Coleman, who's had a good season at Everton. Not always started, but he's played a lot, and he's obviously appreciated by the manager Ancelotti. Matt Doherty's season at Spurs has been patchy, the phrase you used. I think it's been worse than that. It got off, he was in and out at the start, sharing the spot with Oreo when Spurs were playing the earlier rounds of the Europa League. But as the season went on, he became less and less involved, and Ryan Mason didn't use him since he took the job until today. So it's not been good for him. The rest of the players we saw James McCarthy playing today. Again, didn't play enough at Crystal Palace. Very little contribution to Ireland's campaigns this season in the various competitions we played in. And as you said, the others, Sheffield United going down, a few players there going down with them. It's not been a good time, and even the players, as you said, near the top of the championship, we don't have many there. We've no one at Watford, no one at Norwich.
So I should have mentioned Adam Heath, shouldn't I have?
Yeah, and he's had a little bit of a run. Towards the end of the season,
yeah.
He's got a bit of a go, a bit of hope there, a bit of hope at Brighton, I suppose, that Connolly's going to get himself fit and get more football in the Premier League this year. But I would say his season's been very patchy there. Southampton as well, similar. Our player involvement there in the front positions. Shane Long left to get more football. That kind of didn't work out that great for him either. So
yeah, he's ended up on the bench for Bournemouth. He's come off the bench as a sub in those playoff matches. So disappointing, isn't it? It's just
it is, and it's concerning. But we have to wait for the emergence of a few more players to get regular football. You mentioned Darragh O'Shea. He's been left out late on, but overall through the season he got a lot of games under his belt. 20, I think, and it's been a good season for him, I suppose. Robinson as well at West Brom. He's played a good bit of football this season. He's played well at times. So they should be competing in the championship next year, which is the level of where many of our players are, unfortunately, at the moment.
And just to finish on a positive note, Brian, we saw obviously fans coming in for this final day of the season. 10,000 at Anfield. I have to say the hairs at the back of my neck were up when I heard You'll Never Walk Alone at the beginning, at the end of that game. Look, you've been going to matches for decades, both in the UK, around Europe, in Ireland for decades, and you know the importance of supporters. You've benefited from supporters, as a manager yourself. It's the old phrase, football without fans is nothing, and we've really learned that this season, haven't we?
Yeah, well, football without fans is junior participation football at junior level, the level that I used to play at when I played for, the various teams, the College of Technology in the Amateur League. We didn't get big crowds or Larkview in the AOL, or even when I played with Bluebell, we might have had a few there. But generally, the football without fans is low level football, and it for the best players to perform, they should have appreciative crowds, and they should be able to deal with the pressure of the away games and the opposition and all that. So, it's been a very, very strange last couple of seasons, 1.5 seasons now. And it's been great. I hope we're going to get fans back into the League of Ireland here. Yeah. Because it's been difficult watching League of Ireland matches with no crowds. Very difficult for the players. They don't, and I think of the players who come into the league this year, into our own league in particular, young players who come in on loan from various clubs. And both of us were at Pats and Bows on Friday night. We saw these young players playing, and I'd be wondering about them, thinking, wouldn't it be nice for them to understand what passion there is for these clubs in the League of Ireland? They're coming in as loan players from England, from clubs in England and Scotland, and thinking, I wonder do people go to matches in these stadiums? They've never seen the passion that can be at a Bows Pats match, for instance. So I look forward to seeing fans at matches again, everywhere, not just 20% of the crowds at the matches we're getting. We're going to have at the Euros as well, to nearly full stadiums, and for the players particularly so, less so for myself, but for players to enjoy having the back of the fans, and the games would be better, they'd be more intense, there'd be more controversy, referees, officials would be under more pressure, players would be under more pressure to deliver, but it'd be more real football. There's been an unreality about football in the last season and a half that I haven't enjoyed, Stephen. But can I finish today with just saying something about one of my former players, Joe Murphy, who played in the playoffs today. I think Joe is just under the 40 mark. He's half Bob Dylan's age. He was part of our winning team at the Euros in Scotland way back in 1998. He played very well today for Tranmere. Unfortunately, didn't get across the line. They were beaten by Morecambe, who you told me earlier, the goalkeeping coach is another former player of mine, Barry Roach, who played for Morecambe for years and years and years. I think he just dropped out last year. He retired. But to Joe, I'd be saying, keep it going, Joe. All his former teammates and that under 16s team, the likes of Jim Goodwin, who's done a great job at St Mirren, Andy Reid now working at Notts Forest, John O'Shea working at Reading, Graham Barrett knocking about, Keith Foy working up in Kilnamanagh, coaching up there, doing a great job, Brian O'Callaghan down in Limerick. So many of that group have gone into coaching. Ian Rossiter in Sligo, Kevin Grogan in America, in New York, he's coaching as well. John Thompson's working as a physio around Nottingham somewhere. So many of that group were so special, and they brought special joy to football people at that time. But to see Joe playing today, still playing at that level, and the tension of the semi-final playoff in Division 2 says something for Joe. And I know all the group were behind him today. Desi Bourne, another one of the group, texted today about Joe, keep at it, there's another couple of seasons in you, no bother. It's great. Well done, Joe. Sorry you didn't get the result you wanted today.
Brian, you've turned out more coaches than Alex Ferguson.
I don't know about that. I've been on more coaches maybe than Alex Ferguson, coming and going to matches at all sorts of levels when they were going in aeroplanes.
Brian, it's been a pleasure. Hopefully we'll have fans back next season and there'll be a lot more excitement on and off the ball.
Thank you, Stephen. It's great working with you.